Let's hit the high road. Let's hit the high road. It's the first touch, strong connection. It lays deep in your soul. Feel the kindness strongly coming. 'Cause you can.
Hi, this is Nancy Yearout, and welcome to High Road to Humanity. And all the way from Australia, I have Patrick Marando here, and welcome to the High Road, Patrick.
Yeah, thanks so much, Nancy. Great to see you.
I'm excited that you're here. We're working on our timelines here because over there it's 11 o'clock at night when you're talking to
Yes,
me
11
here in the
p.m.
morning.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah,
like the next day.
that's right. That's right. On a Friday too, a tough night to stay up till 11.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you guys, let me tell you what we're going to be talking about today. He's written this cool book. It's called Waking Up to Yourself. And it's drawing on more than 20 years of experience as a spiritual teacher. He is a psychologist, okay? He's written this guide to remembering who we are. He's teaching us how to live from the state he calls the true self. So, Patrick bridges the gap, you guys, between spirituality and modern psychology. And that's all coming together. And I love it that you've done this. He describes how we become disconnected from our true selves, which we do. And he provides a guide to remembering your truth and fully awakening to who you are. And it is time that we all wake up. So he says the result of all this is well being, peace, and fulfillment, which it is. And so, really excited that you're here and that you've put this together and you took time to share this with us today. You guys, I just want to mention communication is out on Amazon here in the United States, in the UK, and I think across the world. So you can pre-order now. It is a guide to angel communication and spiritual law. So what it is, I'll just tell you, Patrick, it's learning how to connect to God, to spirit, learning how to connect to the earth energies, and finally learning how to connect to your guardian angel. And then I give the
Wonderful.
spiritual laws of how we're supposed to live and, kind of guidelines. And then I do some channeling from Archangel Gabriel in the book For Humanity. So I'm just really excited, you guys. I did this because I really want everyone to connect to that love energy that's up there. And it's a guide, it's not real long, but it's really powerful. And so I hope you guys will pick it up and check it out. It'll arrive just before Christmas. So there you have it, before the holidays.
Okay.
The other thing I want to mention really quickly is that I have put a new website together to accommodate all the people who want psychic readings, if you want an angel connection, if you want an energy healing, all these different things that I can do to help people. I'm happy to do it. So I have a new website, psychicforhumanity.com. So you can book with me there. And I'm very excited about this. It's very simple. You can schedule and we can get together and spend time together. So I'm really looking forward to getting into that. I'm going to do more psychic readings now, guys, because the world needs it. And so there you have it. I'm going to use my energy in that way. Now, here we have Mr. Patrick Marando with us today. And I just want to read his biography really quick. He is a spiritual teacher, you guys. He is a psychologist. He is from Sydney, Australia, and he has over 20 years of experience. His spiritual teachings revolve around bridging the gap between spirituality and psychology, like we talked about. He has studied the Zen Buddhism, Taoism, non-dualism, New Age philosophies, and modern psychology, and he focuses on living from a state of truth. Right on. I am there with you. And he had his first awakening at the age of 28. So tell us your story. What happened?
Yeah, well, I was reading a book from a teacher. His name's Adyashanti, and
Okay.
he's a non-dualist teacher.
Mhm.
And I was on a train in Milan, or on a train from Rome to Milan.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so I was just on holidays, to be honest. And I always try to take a book with me when I go on holiday. And I was reading the book, and it was talking about that we're not our mind, we're not our thoughts, we're not our emotions, and we're the awareness of those things.
Mhm.
And just as I was reading that, I just started getting sort of a lot of flashbacks to my life, and standing back, noticing the thoughts and the emotions. And
Mhm.
so then I just sort of awoken to the inner being, or my inner state of awareness, which is our true self. And from there, my connection to living from that truth, it just got deeper and deeper. But it has been a journey to get to really understanding how to live that truth, not just recognizing the truth itself.
Well, it is, and I've talked about this on the show with a lot of people. It's a reprogramming of our thoughts of our, and you talk about the emotions, which is really cool. I wrote this down. This is what you say in the very beginning of this book. You say, this is a book about understanding how the mind develops, works, and does not align with your true self. It's about getting to know your emotions.
Mm. Yeah, that's right.
Very profound.
So,
Yeah.
mm, yeah, thanks. Yeah, so really our emotions are, they're sort of like our compass or our indicators of our depth of connection to our truth.
Okay.
So a good majority of the time, the worse we feel, the less connected to our truth we are, and the less we're viewing our life or the world through the eyes of truth.
So if we're in a miserable situation, we know we're not living our truth and we need to get out of that.
Generally, but then there's times when like feeling sad might be like a grieving period, which is useful to have, and that's okay too. But it's
Okay.
kind of living in that state, which ends up being that we're not connected to our truth. And that's
Oh,
the part about the book, the waking up to yourself. It's about understanding when to utilize the unpleasant emotions to help you live your truth, and
okay.
how to know how to get out of them to help you live your truth as well.
Okay. And yeah, it's aligning with your true self. Now, you did a lot of meditation, I would imagine.
Yeah, plenty.
Okay, right. So you learn to connect with the light, with the divine. You bring in the light every day?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
yes, so I usually ground every day. I bring in the
Yeah,
light every day, and
right.
then really what I do is I set an intention, and it's in waking up to yourself. Is I do a true self breath, which is not just bringing in the light and grounding, but connecting to my inner being, to connecting to my soul, and setting that as my intention for the day.
Do you want to teach us how to do it?
It's in the book, but sure.
It's in the book. Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, is it something?
Yes, yes, I'm just yeah, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So so it's really the first thing would be is to set that intention in your mind, like what you're wanting. So wanting to connect to my true self,
Okay. So
and
I want to connect to my
and
true
so
self. Okay.
yeah, and it's generally done with your eyes closed. And as you
Okay.
close your eyes, you can
Okay.
just focus within yourself where you feel the core of your being is in your body. Everyone might feel this in a different place.
Where you feel the what now?
The core of your being,
The core.
inner core,
Oh, the
like
inner
apple
call. I'm
core.
sorry. It's your accent, dude. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know, I get it. It's
Inner
core.
calling. Okay. Okay. Where does
So,
my, yeah, because your body talks to you because our bodies don't lie, you guys. So,
mm.
so it's where you feel the tension or an unease or something in your body is what you're saying.
No, that's generally when we're feeling a disconnection from ourselves. What I'm
Okay.
saying is inner core, like an apple core.
Oh, okay. All
Core.
right.
So the core of our being.
Okay. All right.
So if you imagine internally where that core of your being is,
Okay.
and would be taking and setting the intention, I want to connect to that, and taking a breath into that area, and then imagine your breath releasing from that area, and doing that another time, a breath into that area, and then out again, and one more breath into that area, and then out again.
I feel
And
calm.
doing that yeah, and doing that is we're connected to our calmness, and some people might really notice a clear distinction, just like you did, and some people might be quite vague. But the more we do that, the more we're practicing reconnecting to that state of being.
Yeah. Well, and it's coming back to center. It's coming back. Yeah. And that's why I meditate every morning. And I don't do it for a long period of time. I'm so type A, but I do connect and ground. And I have to spend that few minutes and I do my prayers and all of that, journal, get all that stuff out because it sets the pace for the day. And then you're
Yeah.
okay to be uh in your body, but not so, I love how you talk about the emotions because right now it seems like on the planet, it's like people are things are happening and people are so reactive. You
Mm,
see it a lot on social media, the
yeah.
reactiveness. And this really keeps us more centered. Do you want to talk about that? Because I feel like this really helps us stay, a little bit more centered.
Yeah, so I usually call that people are quite trigger happy now. So
Right.
everyone's triggered,
Yeah.
and which is okay, but the trigger is actually our opportunity. So when we're getting triggered, we're usually responding from the trigger. But what I'm trying to teach people through in waking up to yourself is your trigger of unpleasantness is usually an indication of how you're looking at things, but also an understanding of how you respond to your emotions themselves. Because
Okay.
the trigger itself is the emotion.
Right.
So I feel hurt, I feel outraged, I feel disappointed, or I feel upset by what someone's done. That is it's my response to that trigger is usually the issue, not the trigger itself.
Gotcha, exactly. Well, you give 8 steps towards allowing emotions, and I'm gonna read those real quick if it's okay.
Yeah,
We're going to page 48 here, and, I like this that you did this. You said it, and I'll just really quickly go through these.
yeah,
He says, "Be aware and breathe," just like we just did. And space, picture your body like the vastness of outer space or a galaxy, and imagine the emotion as one small part of the galaxy, like a star. I think we used to be stars.
yeah,
Isn't
yeah.
that
We're
funny?
all made of that universal energy.
I
Yeah,
love it. You say let go, release thinking patterns. This is big because, this is what I feel that most people, and I'll have to ask you what you feel. It's the programming. It's letting go of the old programming. It really is, isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah.
completely. And yeah,
And then you say allow the emotions. Now, I don't want to give your whole book away, but it took you 6 years to put this together.
yeah, it did. Yes, it did take me 6 years to, because
Yeah.
what was happening, I was living it while I was writing it. So
Yeah.
every emotion I experienced, I had to work through my own reactions to those emotions, my own triggers to those emotions, and really work on shifting my own belief patterns that were troubling me, because I knew the truth, but I couldn't get my emotions to agree to it. And that was really my journey, and which part of the book I created something called Lighter Thoughts, which that was a part of the journey of really learning to shift my perception from where I am and gradually move it towards the truth.
Well, yeah, because we get these stories in our head. And
Mm,
whether they're planted there at childhood or somebody said something to us, I think it's a lot of times somebody said something to us and it sticks. Like
yeah,
hurt our feelings, and then we start to believe that, and then it becomes a reality, which it's really not. It's just somebody else's opinion.
that's right. Yeah. And that opinion came from somebody else, which came from somebody else and came from somebody else. So,
Right.
and what makes those opinions correct? Just because a lot of people agree doesn't make it true.
Right, they're not true. Well, and you say allow the emotions to be there, and that's hard. I think this is the most difficult part for people.
Mm,
We all tend to, and I don't know if it's human nature, if it's how we're programmed by society, but we hold them in instead of,
yeah.
what do you think? Is it the programming that we've had that we
Well,
hold our
in
emotions,
terms of programming, we're programmed to not want to feel bad. So, or
right?
to want to feel good. So whenever we feel bad, we're going to do whatever we can, usually to try to not feel that.
Right. That's
And
when
some
people
people,
drink or they smoke or they take
yeah,
pills
yeah,
or
yeah, but we
whatever, or
might try,
eat.
yeah, but we eat, but we also do things like we try to think our way out of it. We'll try to worry our way out of it. So it's not necessarily, it's not always such damaging things, but things that can cause damage in excess that we do internally as well. Could be
Right.
self-criticism is part of that as well.
Yeah, self-criticism, self-talk, and that's something we
Mm,
all have to pay attention. How are we talking to ourselves? How are we talking about ourselves? You
yeah.
know?
And
And
when we connect with our truth, sorry, you go, sorry.
no, no, go ahead.
Yeah, when we connect with our truth talks to us in a loving way, and
Mm.
our job is to learn how to listen to that, and again bridge that gap to find that way of talking.
I want to ask you something. We've got a couple more here on the page, but I want to ask you real quick. How long did it take you? I know it's kind of every emotion probably varied, but what kind of
Yeah,
time did it take you, like, or did you like say, okay, I'm going to work on this emotion, or you waited for that emotion to come up, or how did you do it? Can I ask that?
yeah, yeah. Well, usually, first thing I did, I think the first emotion I wrote about was uncertainty.
Hmm.
Um, and it just came. That was the first one I felt compelled to write about. So that was the first one I worked on dealing with.
Okay.
and so then I was really hyper aware of all the times I felt uncertain, and particularly with uncertainty, what I'd like to do is worry, try to search for answers, try to prepare, and sometimes that would be useful, which is okay. That's why we have the aversion to uncertainty.
Okay.
But sometimes it's okay to just wait and see. I just got to be okay to not know sometimes.
Well, yeah,
Uh,
because that if we don't, I feel like, okay, this is what I think, and I want to know your feeling on this. I'm
mm.
such a control freak because I'm type A. I want everything to be so, but I don't, I've kind of backed off because you have to allow the universe to do its job. And
Yeah,
so is it a balancing, do you think, act?
it is a complete balancing act. So say like a type A, a lot of times type A people are usually quite sensitive to feelings of disappointment and
Yes.
feelings of failure and guilt. So so not
No guilt over here.
yeah, that's okay. Sure, sure. In general. So,
I'm just
so
with you.
yeah. So what usually happens in that case is that they're usually quite good at control, not necessarily good at allowing. And so in that
Right.
case, Yeah, so the more I practice the allowing, but to do that, I have to be okay to feel disappointed and shift my belief system, not necessarily shift my behavior to avoid disappointment.
So what you're saying to me is when disappointment comes into my world, or anybody who's type A, or anybody, if you feel
Yeah,
disappointment come in, it's really how you deal with it. So what do? Say, okay, this happened, but it happened for a reason, or how do you handle the
yeah,
disappointment?
it could be that, but partly with disappointment from type A usually is an indication of expectations that are too high.
Well, yeah.
So yeah, so
Yeah.
in that case, it would be, are you willing to choose expectations that are healthier for you, that are more balanced for you?
Uh,
And so the disappointment is kind of an opportunity to shift your perception, not shift your efforts.
right, right. Because
But
we're
but
way
but
up
when
here and it takes a while for us to come back down.
yeah, that's right. And it's not always healthy. And your body is going to cry out for that eventually. So disappointment's trying to help you avoid getting to a place where you burn yourself out from getting to that stage.
You're absolutely right. Wow, this is really cool that you did this. This is a cool book, you guys. It's called Waking Up to Yourself by Patrick Marando. It's a guide to living your truth. And I love the next one that you say respect.
Mm,
I really feel like we as a humanity has lost respect for each other. And I really would like to see this come back. But in this case, you're talking about the emotions, and you say respect the emotion for trying to help, and the sometimes useful role it plays, or practice respecting the process of the emotion ridding your body to the emotional baggage you no longer wish to store. It's true. And I can speak that for myself, that if an emotion comes in like from the past, I try to get rid of it immediately and stay back into the present, because I know that that emotion comes into your body and you relive it, the energy.
mm, yeah,
Talk about this. I mean, what do you know?
yeah. So really what happens whenever the emotion usually comes in from a memory, that's the first step that it usually comes in from.
Mhm.
Um, and so I might get a memory and then feel the emotion from that memory. And if I just do that process, that emotion will come and then it will go.
Mhm.
But if I go into that and add my thinking to that, it might say, oh, why did that happen to me? Why was my life so hard? It shouldn't have been that way. So the commentary attached to the memory is what adds more further suffering.
Right. You
But if
go
we
into a
can, if
whole story. You go into a whole thing, right?
exactly, yeah. But if we're okay to just feel the emotion itself, then it will pass all by itself. And the more we do that, the more we actually cleanse ourselves of our past emotions. And when we do get triggered now, we're not getting triggered from our whole history. We're just getting triggered for that individual event.
So as it comes, it's really weird how it works too. Like I've noticed
Mm.
this a lot lately. Like something will come into my mind that happened years ago, and I'm thinking, where did that even come from? But maybe it's
Yeah,
because I'm working on cleansing. I'm getting them out of there. I don't know.
yeah.
Is
Well,
that
that
right?
increases. Yeah. Well, the more we release, the higher our vibration goes, and the more we are connected to our truth.
Right. That makes sense, because I'm thinking, why would I even think about that
Yeah,
situation from way back when? But I love what you
yeah.
say. Okay, so for the audience, what you do is once that comes in, that thought from the past, and if it's not an emotion we really want to deal with or talk about or elaborate on, it's best to just let it, you recognize it and just let it go.
Or allow it to go on its own is probably the better version of it.
Okay,
Because
all right.
because let it go is usually us. So even me, because I know I used to do this. That's why I was
No, right,
probably the
right.
worst culprit. So I'd feel an
Okay.
emotion, say, no, that's from the past. Just be in the present. Just be in the present. That's from the past.
That's me.
And yeah, but what that is, that's an attempt to control the emotion.
Yeah.
What we're really saying is, yes, it's from the past, but the emotion is in real time. So if I'm okay to just let that thought be there and let that emotion be there, and it will be there, and eventually it will just start to dissipate all by itself.
I
It's
love
kind
that.
of it's kind of like a charged battery, is how, or yeah, like a charged
It
battery. The more
loses
we drain,
energy. It loses
that's
its
right.
charge. Oh, God
Yeah,
bless.
but
Okay.
our job is to stop charging it up again through our mind, because that's what our mind can do.
Right. Right. I'll get him. Yeah, exactly. I love
Yeah.
that. Thank you for coming on and teaching us these
No,
things.
thank you.
And I
My
gotta
pleasure. My
tell you,
pleasure.
this is really cool. All right, and then this is my favorite one. Number 7 on his list, you guys, here of 8 steps towards allowing emotions is connect. And to me, that is like the most important. And you say connect to what advice your true self is giving you in the situation, sense how the
Mm,
flow feels most aligned. And man, connecting to yourself, connecting to your higher self and all of it.
mm.
A lot of people don't know what that is. And I'm sure you're connected with your higher self. Yes.
Yeah, well, that's when I call the true self. Other words I give it is higher self, Christ consciousness, Buddha nature. Everyone's got different names, our soul, our spirit. So that's really what
Mhm.
I'm trying to teach.
Exactly. And I talk to the angels, which,
Mm.
my guardian angel, I guess, is really about the same as if I talk to my higher self, a little bit
Mm.
different, but
Yeah,
similar
yeah.
in the fact that she gives me the information or I can get it directly from my higher self. And you guys,
Mhm.
to connect with your higher self, not to sound weird for anybody who's not familiar with this is just after connecting for a while with God, you do connect with your higher self who has all the answers.
Yeah, yeah. And has all the answers that it's serving you right now, but also has all the ways to lead you to the answers also.
Right. I love this. Yeah. I love this releasing past emotions. That's fantastic. Self love. I wrote this down. We tend to be hard on ourselves. Perhaps we even treat others with the harshness we treat ourselves. What I got from this is I used to be like a really more angry person. This is a long time ago.
Mm.
But because I grew up with a narcissistic mom. But
Yeah,
what I
yeah.
realized when I read this from your book, and it was the first time I ever realized it, is when I read your book. I thought, oh, I was like harsh with people because I was harsh with myself.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Do you want to
Yeah.
expand a little how this really kind of blew my mind, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Okay. So normally how we're taught to love ourselves
Yeah,
is through how we've been shown love.
right.
And so if someone's been critical, and people do it with good intentions, it's not always bad intentions how they show
Exactly.
their love, but it
Right.
might be they parent through criticism, they might parent through fear, in
Mm.
terms of disappointment, they might just have a narrative of, no, you poor thing. So then there'd be sort of a lot of self-pity that we'd learn to develop.
Right.
And and so all those thinking patterns, they can be useful at times, but they're not necessarily the way the true self views us.
Mhm.
And
It's
so the true self,
how somebody else viewed us.
that's right. But it's also how they viewed themselves and how they loved themselves is, and then how they projected it themselves as also
It just keeps
the
going.
cycle.
Yeah,
That's
it's a
right. Yeah.
cycle. Yeah.
Yeah. So the more we learn how to love ourselves, and in Waking Up to Yourself, I've sort of got a whole chapter dedicated
You
to
do.
self-love.
Mm.
And what that's really about is the best wording I can think of how our true self treats us is in a self-loving way.
Mhm.
And so the more we connect to self-love, that's actually a way to also connect to our true self.
Right.
And so for me, I talk about self-love as things like self-care, self-respect, self-appreciation, self-acceptance, having bravery, courage. So there's a lot of different aspects of what self-love means rather than I just feel love of myself. Because often that's what people say, just love yourself like that. It's
No, it's
more,
not
can you
like that.
behave lovingly?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
more
know, it's
behaving lovingly.
yeah, and it's perfect. This book is so great and so needed at this time because this is a time where we all have to wake up and really do love ourselves. But I'm going to be honest with you, it didn't happen for me really until because I had the narcissistic family
Mm.
situation, but it didn't really happen for me until I connected with God, the divine spirit, whatever you want to say. It's that loving energy. What happened, and I just want to share this with you and then get your thoughts on it and see if it happened for you this way. Once I connected to God and knew and I connect every day and I know that that love is there, it doesn't matter.
Mhm.
The other stuff doesn't matter because what
Yeah.
happens is then you have the love inside of you and you
Mhm.
start to love yourself more. Have you found that as well?
Yeah, well, that's the truth because connecting to God, you could say connecting to your true self is part of God because it's all connected.
Right.
And so that is loving. That's so I'm just trying to give language to and behaviors to indicate how to actually act, how to behave out that love.
Yeah.
So that's why I call it self-love, but that's really loving ourselves, our higher self, our God self, God internally is loving. And it's just how do we allow that through us and to
Right.
express itself through us,
Right.
but
Exactly.
also to ourselves, because we're also, most of us are saying love everyone else, but love
What about
yourself,
us? Well,
that's a
yeah.
bad thing. Yeah. No, don't have a big head. You can't love yourself so much.
Yeah. Well, you can. Well, it used to feel like, and I'll just be honest, society, if you would have said 20 years ago, I love myself, people
Yeah,
would have looked at you like you were a vain person. And what
that's
are you?
exactly right.
And what are you doing? And what are you
Yeah.
talking about? Because I can remember when I first started talking about this a few years ago on my podcast, and some of my family would look at me like I was
Mhm.
out of my mind.
Yes, yes.
And
Yes,
now
yes.
everybody's
I know
like,
that look.
is that what happened to you too?
Yeah, plenty of times. Yes, yes. Everyone's looked at me
Yeah.
like I'm out of my mind for teaching these things and practicing these things.
Yeah, what are you doing? What are you doing? Yeah. And
Yeah, yeah,
now it's like mainstream. Now it's like everybody's into
yeah.
it. Isn't it crazy? It's really crazy. It's like the word manifest, nobody said manifest. And now
That's
everybody's
right.
manifesting. It's like nuts. I'm really glad you're teaching this because it really needs to be done. And we're on the same page. You are doing exactly what I think a lot of us light workers out
Yeah,
there are trying to just get people
exactly.
to connect. And I'm sorry, I didn't read the very last one. I was so excited about connection. And the very last one here, you guys, is choose. And this is one of my bad, this is something I have to work. Choose to listen to your true self and decide. Well, I thought you were going to say something differently, but choose to listen to your true self and decide to behave accordingly. So yeah, it's like um listening to that information, I think. Is that what you're talking about that comes through and going with it, right?
Yeah, it's listening, but it's also like I can hear it, so that's listening. But am I listening and taking its advice, or am I just listening? So
Mm,
the choose is, am I going to actually follow the action? So, because say an example might be me doing a speech as an example. It feels really true to me to do that, but my fear is telling me not to, but my inner being and my true self is telling me to. So it's going to require me to use my bravery to listen to that.
mhm. I've had to do that
And
too. It's hard,
yeah, 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 it is.
but it gets
But we can
easier.
do that. That's
Yeah.
right. That's exactly right. And the more you practice it and practice listening, it really doesn't lead you astray.
Yeah. I love this. Okay, well, there are emotions you do talk about. There's section 4 in the book. I'm kind of backing up a little bit. You talk about the
Yeah,
emotions.
yeah.
You divide your emotions into families. I thought this was interesting. You said guilt, regret, um, things like that. Why did you kind of put them in families? Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I divided the families. So the families into say the happy, sad family. And
Okay.
so, yeah, so each emotion is, so happiness and sad aren't two different emotions. They're actually just two ends of one emotion.
Hmm.
And and within the sad family, as an example, I'd say there's sad, then there would be disappointed, there's guilty, there's lonely, there's feeling dissatisfied, and they're all different versions of sadness. So I sort of call that the sad family. Then
Hmm.
I've got the hurt and pleased family. The hurt and pleased family is about feeling hurt, betrayed, or feeling loved on the opposite side, or feeling rejected or abandoned or received or welcomed. And so the more we understand what the emotion is, the more we actually understand how we behave according to that emotion. Because each emotion we want, we feel, we usually just want to try to get the opposite one as quickly as possible.
Did you have to wait till somebody betrayed you, or was it? I mean, how did you get through that emotion?
Uh,
I mean, I don't
well,
mean to
the thing,
laugh, but I was
yeah,
like, well, how did you do
yeah,
that?
yeah. Well, the thing is like some of them, like every emotion written in the book, and all of us by the time we reach adulthood would pretty much have felt every emotion in the book.
True, true.
So sometimes it would have been part like just processing some of the past ones, and part of the book as well is like for me it might have been just processing hurt. If I can process hurt, then I know how to process betrayed
Mhm.
because they're in
Yeah,
the same family. They're quite similar vibrations.
yeah, and a lot of this is forgiveness. I will say that
Yeah, particularly
because
when it comes to hurt.
yeah, well, yeah, and I can yeah, I can say that it's really hard to get. There's certain emotions that aren't easy, and I was making light, but I don't want to make light of that. It is difficult a lot of times, and I know myself too, and I'm sure that a lot of people in the audience, you know, um, guilt, regret, betrayal, hurt. A lot of us, feeling unworthy. A lot of those things come from that, and it's
Yeah,
hard to it's hard it's when someone hurts you, it's really hard to get over. If, a lot of
yeah,
us are, and we hide that. And that's another thing I feel like we hide that when someone hurts us.
yeah.
So I like that you talk about this. And so, like, if I want to release the hurt, again, it's back to just feeling it and just letting it go, dissipate.
Yeah, that's right. But also in the book itself, there's a whole like say like if you go to the families of emotions and say we go to hurt, I've got like I think it's about 14 steps. These are the steps to help you process through hurt. And and particularly forgiveness is one thing that often people do find quite difficult. And
Mm.
sometimes it's not even about can I forgive? It might be am I willing to forgive? So you don't have to be at forgiveness yet. It might just be the direction you're willing to choose.
Yeah. Like
And
I've said,
the direction's easier.
Direction. Well, and here's the thing. Let's get down to how it really is. Like I'll say, okay, I forgive that person, but then
Mhm.
like a month later, I'll get this
Yeah.
like remembrance, and then I'm like,
Mhm.
I really don't like that person. But then I'm like, don't say that. You don't really mean that. You don't like
Yeah.
how and today I was like, okay, you don't hate that person. You just don't like how they acted. You don't like
Yeah.
their behavior. It's almost like
Yeah.
breaking it down.
It is, it is. And sometimes what you have to do, and what I had to do even myself, is to get to forgiveness, I had to actually process all of my hate, then go to forgiveness.
Wow.
So even me just trying to forgive was a way to avoid feeling hate.
Yeah. Well, it's
So
true.
yeah, so sometimes it is okay to hate, but I'm hating with the intention of forgiving, which means
Mhm.
the hate will eventually come to an end.
Mhm.
But if I'm hating with no intention of forgiving, I can just keep that battery charged up again, like I said before.
Right, and then you keep that energy within your body, and that's when dis-ease sets in because you're holding
Exactly.
on to all that emotion. And then people wonder why we have all this disease in our world.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
It's
and that's what
crazy.
emotion does. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So, how's the book done so far? What's been the reaction from it?
It's everyone so far. I've got pretty mostly positive feedback.
I
It's
bet.
been out for 6 weeks now.
Yeah.
So it's
Congratulations.
but really for me, it's something. It's more of something from my heart that most of the stuff I wrote in the book, I had to, even while I was a psychologist, I still had to go through it and practice it and learn it myself. And for me, I kind of did it the hard way. So I really struggled with the emotions, and I didn't know a lot of the stuff that I wrote in the book until I learned it. Then I was able to write it down and just creating a guide for others, not just so they don't have to suffer through the process so much as I did.
Right. Well, yeah, you were the guinea pig. Now, don't I think every psychologist should have to do this and read your book and learn this. Well, because it's like anything else. How are you going to help somebody else if you don't know how? If you haven't done
Yeah,
it yourself, if you haven't lived it. I mean, book smart's different than actually,
yeah.
living it and doing it. I just think it's
Yeah.
very commendable that you did this. Um, you also talk about being, I just want to mention a few more things I wrote down.
Mm.
Relaxed and anxious. I feel like, and you put calm and angry emotions. I wrote this down too, calm and angry emotions, but I want you to address it. But when we were talking a little bit about it, but I almost feel like these emotions come from meditating. I mean, they calm down
The
from meditate. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, they
Being
can. And
anxious, and we'll talk about this. What do you think? What was your experience with learning to be more relaxed, not anxious, to be calmer? What was that like for
yeah,
you?
well, part of the thing for me particularly was, so say whenever I got anxious, so I might be anxious. I'm going back to doing a speech. I might be anxious about doing a speech.
Mm-hmm.
So my anxiety of doing the speech, that was more of an entry point. So what I realized in what I've got written in Waking Up to Yourself is that generally a good majority of the time, anxiety and anger and also numbness are actually secondary emotions.
Okay.
So I was only anxious about doing a speech because I was scared of feeling embarrassed.
Right.
If I was okay to feel embarrassed, the anxiety wouldn't have been there.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
No, it does. I'm
Yeah.
thinking about
So
I'm
I'll
thinking
show.
about
Yeah,
what I
yeah.
when I was speaking and how
Yeah.
it was, yeah. And it's hard to get up in front of people, even though you know your stuff.
Of course. Yeah.
It's not
And there's
easy.
an and there's an evolutionary component to that as well. That being judged was a dangerous thing back in the day,
Yes.
because we'd be evicted from the tribe, and that would have meant a threat to our life. So
Yeah.
it is normal to have those responses, but the more we don't care about that feeling, because now it's not the threat that's the problem. We just don't like feeling that emotion. But the more we're okay with those emotions, the less anxiety we're going to have. The more okay we are to sit with disappointment, the less self anger we need.
Mhm. Have
So
you well, no,
yeah,
I
sure.
I just well, I'm thinking about this as we're talking, and I'm an empath, and there's a lot of empaths on the earth right now. And in your
Mm.
practice, have you run across a lot of empathic people who are picking up the emotions of others, and you've had to deal with that? Are you empathic as well?
Yeah, I am. I'm more a bit more clairsentient, so I just feel sort of just more of a tinge of it.
Uh-huh.
But I do get some empathic sensations as well.
Yeah.
And part of it then is also determining, is it my emotion, is it their emotion?
Right.
And adding to that though is, even if it is their emotion, what it's going to just trigger in me is my own reaction to my own emotion.
Right.
So either way, it's still going to be, how do I, like, sure, I'm feeling their sadness, but how do I respond to my own, to the sadness when I feel it? And
Oh,
that's just going to be the same habit that comes out.
gotcha. Gotcha. Interesting.
Uh, Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the more you're okay to manage your own emotions, that's
Mhm.
also going to mean that it's going to be a lot easier to cut off others. And they
Right.
won't also align with that emotion so much with you. It'll just be a tool for you to function in your job, not necessarily a way of having to live every moment.
Yeah. Well, and it's hard for, there are a lot of empaths on the earth right now. And I'm
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
I know my daughter's one, and there's a lot of different people. In fact, I'm like getting ready to do a class on it because I think people don't know how to handle it because it's bad enough we
Mm.
got to deal with our own emotions. Well, not bad enough, but it's a lot to deal with your own emotions.
Difficult enough. Yeah,
Let alone when you go out into public, it's like you're
yeah,
picking up on everybody else's emotions. I'm
yeah.
constantly doing this and trying to clear their energy out of my
That's
space,
right. Yeah.
you know.
Something
And
I was taught was, yeah, something I was taught early on was asking the question, is this my emotion?
yeah.
So that's a really good question to ask, particularly as an empath, because it might not be yours. That you like, when you get that answer, you can when you realize it's not yours, it's a lot easier to let go of as well.
It's somebody else's. Yeah, because if somebody
Yeah,
calls you up and they like totally dump on you, you know, by the end of that conversation, you feel like it's your problem or it's your deal, and you're trying to figure it out for that person when it's not your
yeah,
thing at all. They've just decided to bring that in, and that's what you're talking about. You got to separate this stuff.
yeah. That's right. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And empathy is like a gift and a curse, but the more you know how to use it, you can use it as the gift.
Okay, yes, you're absolutely right. I agree with that. Now, I bet, and I just want to ask this, do you have your patients like, do you give them a copy of the book and say, check this out
I
and read
have
it?
just started, yes, yeah, but I'm
Good.
really just, a lot of my time I spent actually separating my psychology work and my spiritual work.
Mhm.
So really writing this book has really sort of, like, it's sort of like coming out a little bit to the world that I'm actually combining both.
Yeah.
And because psychology is generally can be quite strict on the scientific side, and I don't want to betray that. I want to honor that as well. But
Mhm.
I also want to bring in this part of me that I know is so beneficial and can be so beneficial for many people.
Well, yeah. Well, what have the other psychologists said about it? Have you had any reaction from your fellow, psychologists?
Not too much yet.
We love it. They're probably like, why didn't I do it?
Yeah, because also the book, Waking Up to Self, it's not quite released in Australia yet. It's released in the US and UK, but
Okay.
Amazon's only releasing it on the 1st of October. So it has actually been a bit more of a quiet launch in Australia.
I love it. You're like me. My book has been out in the UK, but like for pre-sale, but it hasn't really come out yet. It's like a whole
Yeah.
thing. You're like waiting. It's like anticipation.
Yeah, yeah, it's okay. How do you be okay with uncertainty now?
Well, I think it's great. So it's coming out soon. That's going to be really awesome. And then you'll have
Yeah, yeah,
more
yeah.
reaction, I'm sure,
Yeah,
from
it's
people.
particularly in Australia, but in the US, like I said, it is out, and I have got some positive reaction from that in the UK also.
Yeah,
So that's really exciting as well.
it is exciting. I'm happy for you. I just want to know real quickly, I don't want to spend a lot of time, but what's happening right now over there, in Australia, in the land down under? They call it the land down under. What's going on? Are you guys having, I mean, we got craziness happening here in the United States. We have immigrants coming in from other countries. We have a presidential election, and people are just out of hand on that. We've got all kinds of weird stuff going on. People not behaving themselves. What do you got going on over there?
Yeah, so I guess there's a lot of uproar about the war in Palestine and Israel, also Ukraine and Russia. There's generally often a lot of or some tension between sort of First Nations and how they're treated unfairly. They're usually the main social justice issues that are going on here.
Mhm.
Uh, me personally, I don't overly get involved in social justice issues. I'm not saying that's a problem or right or wrong. For me,
Okay.
I'm always about trying to work on myself and work on me as an individual to bring peace to the world as myself. And the
Mhm.
more I'm peaceful, I'm actually adding peace to the world. And
Yes,
that's also someone else can find their own peace, and that can actually, we can create social justice just internally, not necessarily having to go externally for that. But everyone's got their own path, so that doesn't mean my path is the right path or the wrong path. That's just how I feel compelled to live it.
I think it's perfect, and you're exactly right. And this book will help. After everybody, we can't tell people when to wake up or when to
No.
realize these things. But as each individual person, you're correct, works on themselves, it raises the vibration, and then we're an example for
That's exactly right.
everyone else. Yeah, and I
Yeah,
love that. What's next for you?
yeah.
What's coming up next for you? What's your next book?
Um, I've I've actually nearly finished another book. It's about my spiritual journey. So
Oh,
it's yeah, so it's a memoir and a teaching at the same time.
nice.
And I'm sort of just I'm really into that at the moment. I part of living waking up to yourself and exploring my own emotions, I studied acting and improv classes.
Mhm.
And so I grew a real passion for that. And that just really helped me access certain emotions that I found it a bit trickier to get to.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
and also live out like that silliness of that emotion in like a simulation rather than having to do it in real life too. So from that acting, I started writing a play about my life a little bit, and that just transformed into a book. So that's happening now, and really just promoting the book and really growing the link between psychology and spirituality. That's really what I feel is my calling, and really helping people connect to their truth because it is there and it's available for all of us and any of us at any given moment.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, I love that you did the acting thing because we're all really in a play, I feel like. You've heard this, I'm sure. And
Yeah.
I'll mention it, we're just down here playing a part. And I just feel like it's how we react to every situation that comes
Mm,
across in our path. And that's how we grow and that's how we learn.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's fantastic. Really great
Yeah.
book. Patrick, thank you. Waking Up to Yourself, A Guide to Living Your Truth by Patrick Marando. Do you have a website?
I do patrickmarando.com.
Okay, and you guys,
Yeah.
that's
And
Marando. Okay,
that's right.
patrickmarando.com. And they can get in touch
I'm
with you.
also on Instagram too.
Okay,
Yeah, at Patrick Marando on Instagram.
okay. All right,
So,
fantastic.
yeah,
Is there anything you want to leave us with today?
that really that your true self is always there. It's available to connect to at any given moment, and your emotions are, while they might feel unpleasant, they're actually your opportunity to find a peace in that moment and shift your mind to those of your true self.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Thank you for joining us today. I really
Yeah,
appreciate
thank you so much.
Yes. Hey guys, remember my new website, psychicforhumanity.com. If you want to book a reading, you can pick up my book, Wake Up, The Universe is Speaking to You. It's at Barnes& and Noble and it's at Amazon. And the new book is ready and it's a guide to angel communication and spiritual law. Hope you guys will check it out. Thanks for joining us. I hope everybody has a fabulous weekend and God bless.
Hold your head high, the world is coming. Watch the colors lift your soul. Connect the dots and keep the motion. Can achieve your goal. Let's hit the